at UNISA Library to host the national launch of this important day on the calendar of Liasa and librarians in every part of South Africa. For those of us in the profession, we already know that librarianship is a dynamic profession and is a key contributor to the development of citizens and their communities. So it's appropriate on a day like this that librarians everywhere reflect on the critical role we play in nation building and celebrate these efforts. Librarians Day and the efforts that we make is supported, of course, by our national association, the professional body, and the Library and Information Association of South Africa, LIASA. And it was launched on the 10th of July, 1997. I remember this well because I was around at this time, colleagues. It also celebrates LIASA receiving accreditation as a professional body in February 2015 from the South African Qualifications Authority, SAQA. On this day, as I said, it's worthwhile to reflect, and it's appropriate to reflect for us as professionals on what it means to be a professional librarian. Amongst the things that we do that I want to point out is raising awareness about a basic human right, which is access to information. And on this day, we also celebrate, of course, the profession and what we do as professionals. And so we've got many names, apparently. We are called librarians, we are called information specialists, we are called information managers, knowledge managers, and many other names. And those reflect our roles, I suppose, in our organizations, in society, in communities that we serve. But there are also new roles. And so we know that we are forever evolving as we are professionals dealing with information in an information age. And so our roles continue to evolve and develop. And so we also now look at new roles for librarians, such as data curators. These are some of the new names that we have: research specialists, repository managers, and agents, colleagues, in the scholarly communication process. But I think more than anything, for me as a librarian, we are social activists speaking out against issues that concern us as librarians, such as the burning of libraries. And we promote reading and the love of reading through our efforts in our libraries. I'm going to stop there because I'm sure that our guest speakers will have much to say about this. So let me take this time now to acknowledge our guests. Our president-elect will be with us this morning, Mr. Chani Molepo, who's the president-elect and also at the University of Free State. Mr. Morris Mabasa, who's chief librarian in the Department of Defense, and Dr. Collins Chusita, who's at the Department of Information Science at Durban University of Technology, DUT. As we wait in anticipation to hear from our guest speakers, I want to leave you with this question, colleagues. Are you a registered professional librarian? Thank you, Mr. Program Director. Ms. Siba, back to you.
Thank you very much, Fatima. A round of applause that will be through the icons there. Are you a registered professional librarian? That's a question for us. I see a hand there. Is that hand by mistake or? Okay, let's move on. Fatima mentioned a very critical component, a very critical part, that is reflection on our profession. the time to reflect on our profession. And this part will be dealt in details by Mr. Charlie Molepo, who is currently our president-elect. Charlie Molepo, the professional librarian, teacher, and assessor, has been the deputy director at University of Free State Library, responsible for research and scholarly communications since 2015. He represents non-academic staff at University Council and serves on its Finance and Human Resources Committee. Before joining University of Free State, he worked at Vista University, Natal University's Campbell Collections, University of Johannesburg, Universal Knowledge Software, University of KwaZulu-Natal Libraries, and Dawson Books UK. That is part of the Bertram Books, as the International Account Director for Africa. He also served on the following governance structures in his career: Vista University Council, ETDP SITA board member from 2000 to 2004, and in 2010 to 2012, as a member and chair of South African Qualifications Authority Standard Generating Body, Library and Information Services. He served as the president of Union of Democratic University Staff Association, UDUSA, for 3 two-year terms. Currently, he serves on the Library and Information Association of South Africa, LIASA, as the president-elect. Join me in welcoming Mr. Molepo to give us some reflections on the profession. Over to you, Mr. Molepo.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lidwaba. I feel old already with that looking how far back one comes in this profession. Colleagues, I would like to take this opportunity to thank UNISA executive and colleagues for hosting us on this special day. It is special because a lot of people spend time in crafting what we currently have as an association. If I can reflect back, Chair, Program Director, 28 years ago, 28 years ago in Durban, there was a conference called Listesa. That conference was chaired by one of the African leader in library and information science, which was Dr. K. Rasiroka, who was then a university librarian of Botswana. Dr. K, in expressing her views from that conference, he said the train has begun to move towards the unification of the Library Association. For young ones in the group today, South Africa, based on its previous political experiences, we were a divided nation. There were quite a number of staff association library association that were in the country. They were all based on race. Mainly, they were based on race. We had the historically white association and a historically black association. And we had the so-called progressive staff association, which were linked to political bodies that were pushing what we used to call mass democratic movement in the past. And there were elements of race even within that, because it was mostly from the colored community. So what Listesa did, it brought all of these associations together That was 20 years ago, 28 years ago. Then 26 years ago to this day, which was the 10th of July in 1995 at the University of Pretoria. That's where the birth of Liasa happened. And that led to what we currently now know as Liasa, the professional body. This is very important, colleagues, because I'm stretching this to try and bring to the attention of librarians how important this day it is. As we reflect today on telling powerful stories about librarians, sometimes we forget to tell the good stories of the ones that have gone before us. You speak of Dr. John Sebe, you speak of Claire Walker, you speak of Patience Maisela, you speak of Dr. Peter Law, Professor Peter Law, you speak of Ellen Tice, a number of great leaders that put aside their differences to make sure that we have one voice that represents the Library Association. And today it's a culmination. As we are today celebrating this day because those ladies and gentlemen set the time aside to make sure that the library profession and the information science profession speaks with one voice. And we need to look back and reflect as a body to say, these people made it. What is it that we, as the current librarians, what are we doing? What are we doing as information professionals? What are we doing as knowledge managers? It's sad, though, to say, looking now at the current situation, we have made a huge impact up to a stage where the Liasa has been recognized as the only professional body within the South African Qualification Authority. So we are in the framework in terms of quality assurance, in terms of what librarians should be. And it is sad, though, to say that as a body, as a librarians ourselves, as individuals, we had not stepped up to the plate. We have not come in to appreciate, to say, now that we are in the qualification framework of the country, we should also make sure that we then register our membership with an association so that we make sure that when we operate, we get to operate within the framework of being a professional body. I would like to say, program director, one of the most important things that when you are a professional person, you transcend, you go beyond personal issues because you understand that what is happening, it reflects on your profession. So you don't look at Charlie as a person. You might not like Charlie as a person, but you would need to work together with Charlie because it's good for the profession. So that's when the whole issue around ethics come into play. A professional body gives us it gives us an opportunity to work together regardless, which happened in Listesa. All people that came together during that conference didn't believe, they didn't have the same view about the country. Some still believe that apartheid should continue to exist. Others were looking at the demolition of apartheid. Others were looking at separation of communities. But together they all agreed that the library as a profession, it's important. And they put their differences aside for the benefit of what we have today. So today I'm appealing to all librarians as a legacy that we can leave for our children, as those people have left a legacy for us. Let us put our difference aside and embrace professionalism. Even government has embraced, as we have seen in the Gazette 380 of September 2021, where the then Minister of Corporate Governance has gazetted that all local government should be professionalized. And within the library space, LIASA, as a professional body, it's cited as the authority in terms of quality assurance of the profession. So colleagues, all I'm saying is that here is recognition of where we come from. We have fought as librarians to be recognized as professionals. We have always argued that you cannot take somebody from any other profession and put him in the library to run a library, because there are certain expertise, skill set that are only can only be acquired at a higher education institution for one to become a librarian. And now that that recognition is there, it is our responsibility to embrace it and go and make sure that we, at the end of the day, at the end of our name, you add PLSA, meaning that you are a professional librarian recognized by SAQA. If you don't have PLSA behind your name, SAQA doesn't know you. You are a pretender to be a librarian, and that's what this means. And today I'm saying, as librarians, as we celebrate this day, let us look at the sacrifices of those leaders that came before us 28 years ago, or pre-28 years ago, because Listesa was a culmination of negotiations that predates 1995. So let's make sure that all their efforts doesn't fall. Instead of us seeing that unity go forward, we have seen a lot of disintegration of the library profession. We have seen people establishing new associations. We have seen people, instead of us getting together, we have seen other people trying to come up with new things. Even though some of them, they develop them as community of practice, but later you would see that people try to push towards almost semi-autonomous bodies, which doesn't serve. We need a unified voice that speaks on behalf of all library and information professionals. Lastly, colleagues, those who are members of LIASA, you might already have heard that in compliance, because when you get accreditation by a qualification authority like SAQA, it also give you guidance to say who can and who cannot be a recognized professional body. So there are certain requirements that as an association we need to also to fulfill. One of those requirements is to restructure library association to be a fully professional association. Amongst of those things is the creation of the structure. Currently, our structure is governed by the executive committee and the representative council. But going forward, we will be restructuring to comply with the SAQA requirements, so that we have a board that is going to govern the day-to-day running, of the association in between conference. But the member, the LIASA member, remains the main, or what we call the AGM, where is the general meeting of all members of LIASA, remains the main decision maker of the association. But in between AGMs, there needs to be a structure that runs. In the past, it used to be the executive and the representative council. But now, going forward, it will be the board and its subcommittees, which complies with all the King IV requirements of good governance. Colleagues, as I end my address to you, I would like to say, as librarians, we are privileged that we still have people that we can still look to. Most of these people that I've cited earlier when I began they are still around. And very soon, the association will be meeting all stakeholders to look to reflect and to give them opportunity, to give them to give us feedback in terms of the route that we are taking in towards the professionalization of the board. But what I wish to say to UNISA colleagues, as you celebrate 150 years, you have the memory. UNISA has been able to produce quite a number of leaders that currently led this association. Amongst others, we remember Robert Murupa, who was once the president of this association. Robert Pierce, we remember the current university president in Australia, who also became the first director of LIASA, and many others. It's not a mistake that today we gather under the platform of UNISA as it celebrates 150 years, but this university has produced a lot of librarians, and just a few months ago we were looking at the passing away of the first librarian who was also produced by this university. So colleagues, UNISA executive, I wish to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, from my position as a president-elect, for hosting this important day. Colleagues, I would have loved to stay on until the end. I would stay, however, I'm also scheduled to speak at the University of Cape Town, South African Librarians Day celebration at 11 o'clock. So if you don't see my name on the screen, you must know that I've then moved over to Cape Town. They brought us this cold. As you can see, I'm wearing a very thick jersey, and currently I'm joining you from home. So thank you very much, Program Director, to Executive of UNISA, colleagues that are on the platform. Happy South African Librarians Day. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mlepo. You know, you also reminded us that we need to give credit to our forebearers, because we are now enjoying in their labor. That is because they contributed significantly for us being here today. And you talked of saying not anyone can be put in the library and serve as a librarian. You need to be a professional, a qualified librarian to be a librarian. That's food for thought. That's really something that is very, very important, especially for us in the profession. Thanks once more. Let's give Mr. Mlepo a round of applause. Thank you so much. Dr. Chisita, your hand is up. Can you lower it down?
No. Oh, yeah, I'm trying to lower it down. Sorry, it's a mistake.
Yes. We will take questions after all speakers have spoken or have presented. At the end, we have an item on questions and answers. We'll take questions there. Moving forward, someone who's also going to tell us about his journey to librarianship is Mr. Maurice Mabasa, who's currently the chief librarian at the National Department of Defense. Mr. Mabasa also played a very significant role in LIASA, Libraries, Limpopo School Library Association, the unification of information stakeholders and LIASA. That's when these formations were still coming up. And yes, and he also served in IFLA, Committee on Library Services to multicultural populations. Apart from that, he has been a librarian from the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture in Limpopo. And as I indicated, He's now the chief librarian for the Department of National Department of Defense. A round of applause to Mr. Mabasa, and over to you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Lidwaba. I'm highly privileged for your introduction. Thank you very much. I was very impressed when the president-elect, Mr. Charlie Molepo, spoke about his death. I was there in 1995 at the University of Natal. The event was hosted by Hafi Afeji. So it has been a long journey, a very great one. And I was very impressed also when Fatima Daris spoke as she welcomed us, because she's one of the people that is my role model. She's not even aware. As I speak at the moment, I'm actually having Liasa in touch for March 2009, and I was going to quote her. You know, I'm so much impressed when you say there's an article that she wrote about librarians for advocacy. And she indicated that be a librarian in all spheres of your life. Be a librarian in all spheres of your life. And this is the thing that has been my commitment from day one when I became a librarian, that I should be a librarian in all spheres of life. You must be visible in all spheres of life. Not only be visible at that area of responsibility where you've been allocated, but you must be visible as a librarian everywhere. And she goes further. She says, don't be a librarian only in the 4 walls of the library from 8 to 16 hours. You must talk and advocate for libraries in every network that you are in. I recall at one stage when I was still a member of the executive committee of Liasa, and we had a very long debate in one of the meeting at UNISA Sunnyside campus. A lot of people were even thinking of quitting, and I up and said I will live and die for Liasa. And I still remember the deputy president of Liasa by then, I think it was John De Beer, who said she will never do that. She will never live and die for Liasa. So we must be such kind of people as librarians who are prepared to live and die for our associations, for our profession. We must be visible at all times. So this is the message that I want to talk to. We must be proud of our profession. We must actually make people aware that we play a very significant role in society. So my journey as a librarian has been very rewarding, but it was all because of Liasa. So I'm so grateful today that we're actually acknowledging and recognizing the role that Liasa has played in our country. Without Liasa, I could not be where I am today. Through Liasa, I was able to be nominated to represent the association in a seminar in London in 2002. And through Liasa, I was also a recipient of a grant from the National Library of Canada, which enabled me to attend an IFLA conference in Glasgow in Scotland. So I'm very much grateful to Liasa. I would really like to encourage all librarians to participate actively in our association, to give it value, the value that it deserves and the recognition that it deserves. I would really like to thank the University of South Africa for actually hosting me and also inviting me to be part of this great occasion today. In conclusion, I would really like to say that we must be active at all spheres of life. We must be visible, we must be, everyone must be able to see and acknowledge that librarianship is a profession that is worth noting, is a profession that is very significant, and we must try by all means to play our role and be accessible at all times. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mabasa. A librarian should be visible in every aspect of life. Be a librarian wherever you are. Be a librarian wherever you go. Be proud of the profession.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Let's give Mr. Mabasa a round of applause. Thank you so much. Then our next speaker, that's Dr. Chisita. I'm trying to locate the bio here. Dr. Chisita's bio. Itumele? Marita?
We are here.
Yes, the bio.
I've sent it by email for you, Dr. Ledubois.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. Right. Apologies, colleagues. Dr. Chisita Collins is a senior lecturer in the Faculty of Accounting and Informatics, Department of Information Systems at the Durban University of Technology. Chisita has been a postdoctoral fellow in the Department of Information Science at UNISA. He has experience in library and information science practice, teaching, and collaborative research. He has published numerous journals in the DHET accredited list, including books and book chapters. Dr. Chisita has worked with various universities in Southern Africa and national, as well as international organizations involved in LIS, including the Zimbabwe Library Association, Library and Information Association of Zambia, and Library and Information Association of South Africa, that is LIASA, Africa Library and Information Association and Institutions.
It's in that office.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you mute, please? Thank you. AFLIA and the International Federation of Library Associations, that is IFLA. He is part of the list professionals involved in the launch of AFLIA in 2013. And he also works with AFLIA's Library Education and Training Institution and Training Institutions section. Dr. Chisita is serving his last term as secretary for IFLA's Indigenous Matters section. Well, let's welcome, join me in welcoming Dr. Chisita. Dr. Chisita, it's over to you.
Oh, greetings, everyone. Executives from UNISA, the president-elect, who has just spoken, also Mr. Mabaso, the veteran and founder also of the Professional Association, colleagues and friends, brothers and sisters. It is an honor to be invited to share ideas with other, colleagues. It is something that you cannot buy, but you have to experience it. Before we start, I'm from the IFLA Indigenous, section, meta section. So we usually want to acknowledge or pay gratitude to the ancestors, because the cables that we are using to speak and to communicate with each other are passing through those spaces that have been inhabited by the great ancestors we have created today. So we pay gratitude to that. My presentation is on navigating footprints of librarianship in dynamic infospheres and afronographic reflections in space and time. Before I go, I would like also to acknowledge that I had Fatima asking, are you a paid up member? I've been a paid up member ever since, even way back before I came here. And I'm currently a paid up member. I always make sure I try by all means to pay up. Right, to introduce our topic, we can say that there are numerous studies that on librarianship that focus more on the colonial and post-colonial developments of libraries in Africa. But there is scant of literature that also tries to go beyond that particular period, which is sort of like a dark period that people don't have interest in, to find out that before the coming of colonialism, how was the information landscape? Do we have anything that we can learn from or draw lessons from? So there's this depth of literature on Africa's role in the development of libraries and how ancient African civilization has contributed towards our libraries. Because if we are navigating librarianship in space and time, we cannot also ignore the contributions of the continent as a cradle of human civilization. What we discern from literature is that ancient Egypt was the supreme leadership in civilization, and students from different parts of the world flocked to that land, seeking admission into a mysteries wisdom systems. These migrations are similar to the current migration of students and job seekers from Africa to Europe. You know, migrations are a continuous process in human history. We also have had migrations in the form of the Bantu migration, where people moved from the other part of Africa and came to the southern part of Africa, occupying and displacing of the San and Khoisan people. We also had movements during the Mufekane, where people moved from South Africa to go and occupy the other parts within. We've also had movements, people coming in to work as laborers. So it's like a continuous process, right? My objectives is that we trace the footprints of librarianship from a micro perspective, describe the impact of inventions like printing press, demystify misconceptions of ancient librarianship, highlight the value of ancient librarianship on civilization, explain the correlation between libraries and the infosphere, identify challenges facing the libraries in the 21st century, and suggest recommendations. We find that how information has been represented through time. We find rock paintings, stone tablets, like the Rosetta Stone, the Egyptian stone, the Assyrian stone, etc. We also find the invention of writing itself, hieroglyphics, heretics, etc., or the symbolic representation of language. We also find rock paintings, also find printing through invention by John Gutenberg, the invention of digital telecommunications, internet and globalization, and currently the fourth industrial revolution, and also the era of smart technologies. All these have had significant developments, have had significant impact on LIS as a profession. So to start with, we look at the human being as the first library or librarian, because the human mind is the capacity not only to absorb and generate information, but also to generate, to synthesize, to analyze, to store, to preserve, and to retrieve it. But it has got its own limitations in the sense that the human being is a mortal being. The human being is born, lives, and he passes on to the next world. And this is evidenced by such sayings as a library has been destroyed when an old man or an old woman has died. Because in Africa, age is associated with wisdom. So we start with the human mind, and any engineering looks at how the human body functions. So whatever gadgets that we have, whether it's 4IR gadgets, etc., they are also developed in line with how the human being operates. So the human mind is the first search engine, the original search engine. We also have got rock paintings that are scattered throughout the region, throughout Africa. We also have got clay tablets, as I said, the Egyptian scrolls. We also had the development of what were known as institutional libraries, private libraries for the clergy, for the aristocrats. And now we have moved from automated to digital libraries, and now transitioning to smart libraries. So it's a continuous process in this evolution of libraries. So libraries have come down to us as far back as 2000 BC. And other nations have had records to prove the existence of these libraries. That's the libraries, for example, in Mali, with South Africa, it had a partnership when Mali was facing civil strife and documents needed to be served. And there was an intervention by South Africa to save those documents because they contain valuable wisdom. The libraries, for example, in Egypt, they've been known by different inscriptions. For example, the medicine of the soul, the house of books, the healing place of the soul, a place for the cure of the soul. All these superlative descriptions give value and credence to the library as an institution and to librarianship as a profession, as was highlighted by the president-elect. Now, human beings being at the center of librarianship and information access, they occupy a unique space in the sense that we are distinguished from animals within the LIS matrix. Our supremacy as human beings over other animals is that we have got the power of articulation, we have the power of communication, we have the power of knowledge, generating knowledge, processing that knowledge, preserving that knowledge, sharing that knowledge. We've got the faculty of wisdom, that what we call the mental alacrity. We've got the psychological resilience to withstand pressures. We've got the ability to record human experience in terms of history, literature, revelation, and the scientific achievements that make part of our milestones as human beings. So we occupy a very significant space and as drivers of the information revolution. Books are important to us as librarians because these are our tools, what we call our sine qua non tools of our trade, the essential tools of our trade. But we need to know how they have evolved through time and space, since our presentation is looking at navigating the evolution through time and space. We've got plates of lead and copper, books as barks of trees, books as brick, stone, or wood. Even Moses' 10 commandments were written on clay and stone tablets. We've got also skin parchments of gods being used as books throughout history, linen, silk, and horns, rock paintings, as I highlighted earlier on, by the San and Khoisan people. Then we have the invention of the printing press by John Gutenberg in the 15th century, then the electronic and digital technologies ushering in new forms of books, what we call electronic books. So to books, we are indebted as the special vehicles for acquiring knowledge, the repositories of law, and the learning of all kinds that we pay gratitude to. Originally, libraries started in religious institutions and also amongst the aristocrats, the ruling classes at that time in ancient history. Ancient books had a religious focus because of the theocratic nature of the state. The church wielded more power during this period. For example, the ancient libraries of Egypt were located within temples. And this also stems from the fact that we can ask the question, does intellect come through faith or faith come through intellect? And when we look at various religions that we have, Islam, Christianity, and etc., we find that the ability to read and write is key to acquiring that faith. Why I cited Islam and Christianity, it's because Africa is espoused by Ali Mazrui in the book Triple Heritage. Islam, Christianity, and African tradition have become part of our, triple heritage. So we find that the religious libraries have been used as tools or instruments of evangelization. And the aristocrats and the clergy were the first to collect and preserve documents produced concerning their own activities. And any other type of library that evolved later on, like public libraries, school libraries, and university libraries, special libraries, etc., are a byproduct of the expertise of church libraries and their ability to document or manage information as resources. The printing press by John Gutenberg is also one of the significant development that we appreciate as librarians, because John Gutenberg invented the printing press in 1442. And its impact was so enormous because it brought about radical changes in the way that people viewed their governments. People began to question divine right to be ruled by kings. And when you look at from 1450 upwards, up to 1900, you realize that slowly, one by one, the governments by kings began to fall. With the last government in Europe under the king being the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which collapsed at the beginning of the First World War in 1914. Britain was able to preserve its monarchy because it came up with some reforms in the form of social welfare packs that enable people not to think in a radical way. And the monarchy has existed up to now. Now, through books, we found the demise of monarchical power in both various European countries. The huge volume of books that were being produced also brought about an awareness and a consciousness among people that were able to create or develop a new age of thinking in the form of enlightenment as people began to question so many things. It also brought about wider access, slowly, but not automatically, but gradually. It also enabled other people to have their works published. It also brought about the development of what we can call public education, because previously education was a private affair, because it was a preserve for the aristocracy, a preserve for the church. But after the invention of the printing press, it now, people began to think of creating schools that are public, that are run by the government for the people. Even though here in Africa, our form of education has been that of socialization in the spirit of Ubuntu. We also found that through books, literacy began to rise. Like, books also were able to breathe life to librarianship and to what we can call modern librarianship. Books also spread ideas concerning history, science, poetry, and other, disciplines. Movements were also organized. For example, the Communist Manifesto was produced in the 1840s, and it had a serious impact on Europe. It caused revolutions. It caused also the birth of the Soviet Union, what we call Russia today, with the downfall of the Tsar after the 1917 revolution in Russia, waged by the Bolsheviks against the Mensheviks. Books also created public libraries because of industrialization. And also the coming into being of books caused a lot of uneasiness on the part of the aristocracy. For example, in 1537, the French government was the first to pass the legal deposit law. The reason why the legal deposit law was passed was because the French king became perturbed by the fact that there were so many books that were radical, that were questioning the status quo, or books that were regarded as part of the anti-establishmentarianism philosophy, books against the status quo, books advocating for republicanism, books advocating for a new thinking based on democracy. Now, what we call legal deposit and bibliographic control, national bibliographic control, universal bibliographic control, all emanate from this legal deposit law passed in 1537 in France to enable governments to control and know what was being produced in which area, which areas were lacking deficit. But however, authors did not trust the government because they felt the government was going to spy on them and know which radical ideas were being produced. Books also enabled individuals to more easily and create multiple copies of documents and spread these widely to a wider audience. I'll try to speed up there. So I would give you this quote, even though it sounds blasphemous. Without books, God is silent. just as natural science at a standstill. Philosophy, and let us dump all things involved are in darkness. So books and librarianship, you cannot separate books and librarianship because those are the sine qua non tools of our trade. Right? Now, why should we study this significant era? Because history has been distorted and disfigured. And as a result, when we teach students, we start teaching them from when the colonialists came. We forget how pre-colonial era we were able to generate, manage information. So using philosophies of Afrocentricity as propounded by Molefe Asante Kete, Sheikh Andy Diop, and many other writers, we would like to turn the globe around and say, let's start from prehistory. So this notion that Africa was the dark continent and etc., and hence the need to bring about Christianity, commerce, and civilization, it's one thing. There's a need to go deeper and study why that past is regarded as the dark continent. We also want to study this history because we want to learn from history and avoid what I can call the madmen of yesteryear syndrome, where we might think we have invented something, yet it has always been there. But for us to know that it has been there, we need to have an understanding of how things have evolved through time and space. Right? Our libraries as memory institutions, as educational institutions or cultural institutions, they exist in what we can call infospheres, right? These spheres that we inhabit include the social sphere, the biosphere, the hydrosphere, lithosphere, and the atmosphere, then the infosphere. So the infosphere underpins all other spheres. It controls, or it can manipulate the social sphere, the biosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere, because of the fact that we are custodians of knowledge, inventions, innovations. So as information people, we permeate all aspects of human endeavor. We are everywhere. We are ubiquitous. So the infosphere consists of inputs and outputs of conversations, books, television, radio, speeches, church services, classes, lecturers, as well as information received from the physical world by personal observations, non-personal observations. It is a segment of the social sphere in its own right. And indeed, it has considerable claim to dominate the other segments. So as librarians, we are part of this infosphere, and we have the ability to control the all other spheres through the knowledge that we give, that we share, that we disseminate to support national development goals, to support human progress. I will skip that. So we are guided by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 19, that states that everyone has the right to freedom and of opinion and expression. This right includes the freedom to hold an opinion without interference, to seek and receive and impart information, ideas through any media, regardless of frontiers, whether physical or digital. Now, these tenets of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights have been incorporated to national constitutions throughout the world, where there are fundamental freedoms and privileges that are bestowed to everyone. And as librarians, we respect this because it enables us, it gives us the legal framework to be able to facilitate, democratize access to information in order to make the world a better place for all. Our libraries are products of technology. We are part of what we can call the constituents of a gift society. That is the gift that keeps on giving. The library is a public space, a third space. The first space is our home. The second space is our workplace. And the third space is the social space. It's a space that is free from the commercial transactions that you find in the home. It's free from the pressures that you find at the workplace. That is for the users who come to occupy these spaces. And we need more and more of these third spaces because of the dire need for connectivity, the dire need for social cohesion, the dire need to provide for our epistemological needs, the need to know, the need to learn and to continuously learn. Because they say we learn from the cradle to the grave, because we don't know what happens when we die. But learning is a continuous process. It's an important space because the library occupies an important space in the scheme of things in the progressive new brave world. That's the world of technology, the weird, wired, networked world. It's a flag bearer of book culture and literacy. And they say democratic society is a product of the books. The triumph of the book written by men over that revealed by God and over the book of laws dictated by the aristocracy. So the book has powerful impact on developments that have taken place in the world that we occupy. So LIS as a profession is a service discipline that is a steward of the infosphere. So librarianship is transitioning from stewardship of the physical record to stewardship of the infosphere. That is controlling everything that happens within the infosphere, ensuring that people are literate. People are not only literate in the sense that they are able to read and write, but they become imbued with what we can call a high sense of information literacy, a high sense or high degree of meta literacy, where they think critically, where they don't just read the word, but they read the word, they read the world. They engage as critical thinkers wherever they are. So that's the stage at which our libraries are. Now, the other significant stages that we can talk about are the stages like, for example, automation of libraries. This took place after 1945, when the Second World War ended. By the way, the Second World War was from 1938 to 1939 to 1945. After 1945, the war ceased between Germany allies and the opponents. But another new form of a war began because of the fact that we now had what we can call multipolar world, a world that is dominated by two superpowers, the United States of America and the USSR. And as a result, thinkers in the USA, information science and IT thinkers began to, think about innovating ways on how to manage the large volumes of information that would be generated, and also how to support research, and how to come up with the systems that would enable their countries to manage huge volumes of information in order to make informed decisions, in order to have a competitive advantage over other countries. So this led to what we can call the era of automation, where people like Vannevar Bush, Joe Licklider, began to think of ways on how to make library operations move away from manual systems to automatic, automated systems. How to lessen the burden on the librarian and let technology take over. This would give the benefit of what we can call, for example, we have improved internal internal workflows and sharing of cataloging data, providing access to local library resources, providing provision of access to online catalogs, accessing resources outside the library, because previously you could only access resources within your physical library. But through automation, it became possible to access resources beyond your boundary. Enhancing document delivery, and also the era of what we can call interoperable systems. These are systems that enable computers to communicate with each other and share data using what are known as the Z3950 global standard and WW World Wide Web protocols for sharing data. And this has now become the norm nowadays with our digital libraries, where we can share metadata and our systems can speak to each other. The era of automation was replaced by the current era that we are in now, which is the digital phase, or the era of digital transformation. This is where we talk of digitization of resources, converting content from analog to digital. Whereas with automation, we are merely talking of computerizing systems to ensure easier workflows. There have been various developments since the 1950s that have led to this digital transformation, especially in the developed world. For example, investments made by government agencies in the USA to ensure that the Internet Protocol suite TCP was introduced as the standard networking protocol. The rise of communication services like electronic mail, instant messaging, VoIP telephone calls, etc., among other developments. These digital library phases have been divided into two, but overall, they are all aimed at achieving the same thing, ensuring the digitization of collections and systems for libraries to able to become more vibrant in an increasingly technology-driven dispensation. These initiatives also have been manifested in Africa. For example, the Africa Digital Library project, the PERI project, which is the program for the enhancement of research and information, which was supported by INASP, Agora, access to global online research in agriculture, health, internetwork access to research initiatives, etc. And all these have been aimed at ensuring that universities and other resource-endowed libraries move towards the digital frontier. Here, we also, to sum up what I've been saying, we can say that our libraries have evolved from first-generation libraries. First generation, talk of first-generation libraries, first-generation catalogs, first-generation books, first-generation librarians. First-generation libraries are the ancient libraries, and others that followed up, church libraries and etc. Second-generation libraries are those that are based on automation. Then we have got third generation libraries. That's from the second half of the 1950s up to the 20th century, end of the 20th century. Then fourth generation libraries and fifth generation libraries. From fifth to sixth generation libraries, we are now talking of digital libraries and smart libraries. 4AR, 4IR, artificial intelligence, virtual, reality, and all other, smart technologies of the new era. I'm about to wind up now on this. So what are the challenges that we encounter as, Africa? Firstly, we look at the digital divide. Because of the fact that we have got poor, internet connectivity, and but that does not mean that we should surrender to the divide. Because a challenge, in a way, provides a fertile interlude for creativity and innovation, as you will see in the last 2 slides or so on. So what I mean there, how do we turn the digital divide into a digital dividend? It can only be possible through strategic thinking, strategic partnership, and also through cooperation and collaboration between libraries and related institutions. The reading culture, the libraries are key there in driving the reading culture, because we have moved away from basic literacy. We are now at an advanced level where the world in which we are now requires so many literacies: information literacy, meta literacy, digital literacy, cultural literacy, and etc. So that our people do not relapse into illiteracy. People should not read to read for the sake of passing exams, but they should read for the sake of acquiring knowledge, cherishing knowledge, enjoying the acquisition of knowledge. So that if we read only for passing exams, that might mean we will relapse into what we can call, we will become literate, illiterate, literate, illiterates. So we want to be literates forever, not literate, illiterates, because we've just, read to pass an exam. Right. Another challenge there is, how do we respond to shifting information production and consumption patterns within the information landscape? We need to, be innovative, to be dynamic, to rise above, our physical spaces, to rise above, our physical spaces, and generate new research, conduct new research, profile our communities, so that we are in tune with what is happening on the ground. Also strengthening strategic partnership for enhanced service delivery. Partnerships are essential because they are silo-busting strategies where we no longer, existence in the 21st century is no longer about the individual or an organization operating on its own, but it's about collaboration, cooperation, coexistence. So we need to move away from the silo mentality, right? There are also issues to do with high costs of internet connectivity, because our internet service are provided by
Thank you.
commercial internet service providers. Commercial internet service providers, and they are into business for profit. But however, there is an alternative, for example, in Africa, which is known as the NREN, National Research and Education Networks. And Africa has numerous of these NRENs. Each country has one or two of an NREN. This is a non-commercial internet service provider that works with universities, schools. And in Africa, most of the NRENs, National Research and Education Networks, they work under the banner of Ubuntu Connect. Ubuntu Connect works with libraries to enable them also to have access to affordable internet connectivity. We have also the problem of a vibrant lack of a vibrant indigenous publishing industry, because we rely more on a multinational, publishing industries, and very few of our industries. We need to, have some of our librarians moving also to become publishers, because if you have experience in dealing with the books, knowledge, and etc., you should be able to develop yourself into a good publisher. Our research infrastructure, in as far as ICTs, digital technology, and etc., libraries included, they are part of the research infrastructure, need also to be improved and funded. We also need to ensure that we as librarians, we continuously learn, because if we do not learn, we will not be able to, match up to the changing, environment in the info sphere. So continuous professional development and workplace learning should be one of those key things, like what we are doing now is part of that continuous learning, right? To recommend, we say that's the last, align our library development to national development goals and also sustainable development goals. Strengthen strategic partnership, continue network and advocacy for libraries at all levels, as alluded to by the other key note speakers who came before me. We also need to think of space, our spaces, our libraries. Some of them, we inherited them from colonialism, and they have continued on, with that outlook as elitist, anachronistic, cut off from the other demographic groups in our society. How do we bring in some, an indigenous ambience? How do we Africanize our libraries, especially the public libraries, so that we bring in song, dance, and drama, and everything that makes us African. Also, we should focus more on access rather than ownership. If we are, in operating in technology endowed environments where we can share our digital resources. Good thing also to create local content through open educational resources and promoting various forms of literacy, and also promoting intergenerational dialogue, especially for public libraries, between the various demographic groups, and also promoting interfaith dialogues to enhance social cohesion. And also, we should bring out or revitalize the pedagogical role of the librarian. The librarian is a pedagogist, a teacher, is a philosopher, is a lecturer, because we cut the umbilical cord that separates one from darkness and light through providing access to knowledge. So we are educators in a way, and we are strong in that arena. And aligning LIS education and training with the current trends, so that LIS schools interact more also with industry and with communities. And lastly, rising from the silo mentality, so that we interact, we connect, we cooperate, and we collaborate. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You said a mouthful, Dr. Chisita. Thank you very, very much. These are real reflections. And thank you for the chronological narration of developments in the library space. You outlined, building blocks that shape what we term as the 21st century library. Thank you so much. And of course, the challenges that you outlined, these are they cut across, and these are actually the hindrances towards access to information. Thank you very much. A round of applause to Dr. Chisita. Thank you. And now we move to, our next item, which I think most of you have been waiting for. That is the question session. We'll do it like this. We'll have a set of 3 questions at a time, and then request our speakers to respond, and then we'll take another set of questions until we exhaust them. The first set of questions, Marita, please assist me with the names if I don't see any. Maybe I should raise the first one. The first question will be to you, Dr. Chisita. Human beings are immortal, and taking a leaf from that, you spoke of on the reflections. You spoke of having information that span from time immemorial, and when people die, especially in our tradition, when people die, especially the old ones, then they live with the information. So what I wanted to tap from you is your view on the role oral history can play with regard to tapping into those unwritten, unwritten information, or an unwritten, be it books, articles, or any other publication. What is your view with regard to oral history as a way of securing, that available information?
Okay, can I respond?
That will be the first one. Let's get another 2 more questions, and then I have, let me see. Others can still go to the chat and write their questions there. Itumeleng, I see your hand.
Yes, you may speak. Okay, thank you very much, Doctor. I just want to, mine is just 2 comments. I just want to congratulate Dr. Chisita for a very informative and educational presentation. You made a very important comment when you spoke of spheres, that the infosphere dominates all other spheres. Last week, Friday, we were attending a session by the Chief of South African National Defence Force, where he came up with a concept of a journey to greatness. And in all those things that he indicated, I realized that information was omitted. And I stood up and said, without information is actually, to me, the cornerstone of everything. Without information, you cannot move. information to me is the spinal cord of any society. It's a spinal cord of anything. So I was very impressed when Dr. Sita spoke about infosphere, that it dominates all other spheres. The other thing that I want to comment on is what you spoke about, the pedagogical role of librarians. We have to teach everywhere. We have to be teachers. We have to be visible. We have to be, you know, and I want to connect this with what Fatima Daris indicated, that be a librarian in all spheres of your life. Don't be a librarian just within four walls. Be a librarian in your family and friends. Be a librarian in your community. Be a librarian in your church. Be a librarian in your synagogue, temple, and mosque. Which means we have to, you know, to make sure that we are teachers. We need to make sure that we inspire all other people everywhere. So thank you very much for those, Dr. Sita.
Can I respond?
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for the comments and for the opportunity there. You know, why I emphasize on the pedagogical role, because learning takes place in various forms. And the learning that we have in the library, it's independent, liberated learning, which is based on the principles of what we can call utagogy, which is different from pedagogy in a sense, but even though it has a pedagogical aspect, because when you borrow a book or you ask for a laptop to go and access resources from a database, you are learning on your own. The librarian is a facilitator, facilitating and making that possible. And on the values of information that has also been raised here, I think during the COVID pandemic, when the COVID pandemic started, if you noticed one thing, the World Health Organization secretary, initially when it was announced in December, they just said there is a pandemic. Okay, the world was now in a state of shock. Then after a few days or so on, he came back to say, we are now facing two pandemics. That's the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, and the infodemic. So we are facing a pandemic within a pandemic. So they realized that they had omitted the role of information in dealing with the pandemic. So they now called that for a war on all fronts to fight the COVID physically and to fight it also on the information side. Because what had happened now, because of the fact that people had access to internet, fake news peddlers began peddling a lot of information, some of which was not credible. So also, when we look at how governments throughout Africa responded, libraries were closed. They did not consider the fact that some libraries do not have resources. They are not technologically endowed to offer digital resources. Librarians were not part of the emergency team to plan for the pandemic, because their skills could also have been very useful, because librarians are experts in dealing with the disasters, in managing disasters. So their input could also have been very useful in planning how to deal with the pandemic, because they were going to come in more on fighting the infodemic side of things, because the infodemic was also causing havoc, and you needed to fight the war on both sides. Then on oral tradition, lastly, Yes, oral traditions are very important, especially the IFLA, Indigenous Matters section, places high value on oral traditions because of the fact that knowledge is passed from through the word of the mouth, and we have always relied on the word of the mouth throughout time and space. So I know in certain LIS schools, it's part of the curriculum. They have to know about oral traditions and even be given a project where they go and gather data about, an oral, a project to do with oral traditions. So, because through oral traditions, we learn more, especially like, for example, the classical art of African conversation, that is riddles, puns, proverbs, songs of sadness, songs of happiness, what we call dashes, measures. We learn language itself through oral tradition. So we need the oral traditionalists, always to be part and parcel of the library. They should be invited to the library, either to do storytelling, to do some poems, to do some music. It's not only about books, but we need a library that is decolonized, a decolonized library that also takes into account the indigenous people. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Chisita. The next set of questions, Mo.
Thank you, Dr. Lidwaba, and thank you to Dr. Chisita, Ntate Mabasa, and Ntate Molepo. And happy Librarians Day, South African Librarians Day to all my colleagues. Mine is actually on the issue of curriculum development. And actually, it was sparked by the recommendations presented by Dr. Chisita on the issue of strategic partnerships, the alignment of LIS education with the trends, and also trying to rise above the silo mentality. And I'm not sure I think the three of them will then respond. In an effort to try and have a well-rounded librarian, does the issue of curriculum development then lies with an institution? Does a particular institution have an autonomy on what the curriculum should be, or does associations such as LIASA have a say in terms of how perhaps the curriculum should be developed by different institutions, looking at the current trends, of course? Thank you, Dr. Ledwaba.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mo. There's another one, Dr. Chisita.
All right.
From Zuzipe. Zuzipe, your hand is up. Can you?
Thank you, Dr. Ledwaba.
Yes, okay.
And happy Librarians Day to my fellow colleagues. Mine is not really a question. It's rather a concern or a complaint, I would say. But firstly, I would love to appreciate Dr. Chisita. That was such an informative presentation. Thank you so much. Touching on the challenges, that are faced, challenges being encountered by African libraries. Just the first point, that was the digital divide, the difference between the illiterate and those who are literate. Going back to, like I said, it's not really a question, it's more of a complaint or a concern, actually. I believe that most of the professionals here are part of the hiring process. They are part of the decision makers in the hiring process. in libraries for library assistants, librarians, and so forth. Now with the challenge, I'm just going to take the first one, the digital divide challenge. I believe that only professional librarians can be able to fight such challenges. But looking at how things are being done, libraries hiring people with grade 10s, grade 11s, grade 12s, these people don't really have the knowledge, the academic knowledge that we are being taught from our universities. Now it's going to be so hard to fight those challenges if the decision makers in the hiring process keep hiring people without the actual professional qualification, that is the librarian's qualification. And many other challenges that are being encountered. It's going to be really hard to fight them because of that, of what the decision makers do. We cannot really hire people with grade 10s, grade 11s, grade 12s, when there are hundreds and hundreds of librarian professionals who are sitting at home without jobs. These challenges can only be fought by professional librarians. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zosipo. The third one will be from Patience.
Good day, everyone, and happy Librarians Day. I also just want to comment and add on to what the previous speaker has said. It's very disheartening, librarians, when some students are out there going to a 4-year, 3-year degree, and then you have jobs that are being advertised for library assistants, and you see the requirement is a grade 12. You know, I have a lot of students because I'm a mentor that ask me what am I going to do? You know, why is the requirement a grade 12 and not maybe a diploma? What about the students that actually go do a library science diploma? So really, being in the field myself, being an employer myself, it's really painful to see our my colleagues, freshmen, being out there and not even regretting, rather, being in the library science. And then there was a recommendation at the end.
Colleagues, please mute your mics if you're not on speaking.
Okay. Yes, and then there was a recommendation by Professor Sita at the end, aligning LIS education and training with current trends. So it also goes back to the current curriculum. And if I look at what UNISA is offering, and then I look at what UP is offering, and I look at UCT, UKZN in terms of library science, I can note down a couple of loopholes. If you compare to other LIS schools around the world, currently, maybe my expectation from the presentation rather was a focus on maybe somebody speaking about our threat, ChatGPT, AI. I'm a school librarian. I've been a school librarian for the past 15 years. Me being a school librarian and with AI now, I just feel, okay, what can I do? Because someone will just go on in AI and download the answers, or AI can write the whole essay for them. So I guess this is more aligning LIS education and training with current trends. It will be something that I would wish to see with the curriculum, with our LIS curriculum across all the LIS schools in South Africa, and also in any presentation, because maybe I feel it more as I'm in a school library, and university libraries have AI checkers and all that. But when you are in a school, it's a totally different thing altogether. So it's just on AI aligning with our current trends, and then also curriculum development. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you. You can respond to the questions, and Maurice, you can also assist with the response as well.
Okay, so let me just do brief response there. There was a question on LIS curriculum. That is it only a concern of the LIS schools, or it's a concern for stakeholders? Firstly, maybe let's define curriculum as the learning, teaching, learning, and research activities that, if it is planned, systematic teaching, learning activities that take place within the aegis of the school environment or the institutional environment, whether in class physically or outside or digitally or virtually, it's all part of the curriculum. Some also view curriculum as selections from culture, because where education is concerned, there's also issues to do with the power. Governments have their expectations that this is what should be learned in as far as their vision and their strategic plans are concerned. But basically, the training of LIS schools, sorry, students, it's not just a preserve of the LIS school, but it's also an issue that is of interest to various stakeholders, including the government, including the professional association. Why the professional association? Because the professional association stands for the interests of those members of that profession. It is the one that gives shape to the profession of, let's say, information science. And you find in other countries that the professional association has a lot more to do in terms of what is being taught. They are part of maybe an advisory board of that institution. They are in frequent communication with the LIS school so that they know what is going on and what is being taught. Experts in industry are, contacted more often and sometimes invited to just discuss issues, their expectations when students go there for work integrated learning, or what they call on-the-job training and education in other countries, so that it's not just the LIS school. The students themselves also can also be asked what it is that they want to learn. They can also make an input into how the curriculum is structured. So it's not a one-sided issue. And the issue of hiring, question on issue of hiring unqualified librarian, yeah, that one is a disaster, because it defeats the whole purpose of why LIS, students, or we train LIS professionals. So that is a disaster. I know in certain situations where I was reading that you would find that in a, let's say, an organization, someone will just take his or her cousin and say, okay, you passed matric, go and work in the library. That's a professional injustice, or at the highest level. That should never be tolerated, because a profession is a profession, just like medicine. Because LIS is a profession. Why it's a profession? Because it has got its own board of knowledge, its own corpus of knowledge. It has got its own ethics. It has its own membership levels. It has its own community sanction. So many things that defines LIS is a profession. It has all the attributes that any other professions do have. It has got its own local and international organizations that stand for it. So it should not be sold to the lowest bidder in the streets just because you wanted to maybe please someone. Then there was a question on aligning LIS with the current trends. Yes, I had you, my sister, there on aligning that your concerns on issues to do with things like chat, GPT, these smart technologies, artificial intelligences, etc. But I believe that while those things are important, yes, but the brave new world, this weird, wired, networked world, or weird, wired world that we are into, is not only about technology, but it's also about how do we integrate human beings, technology, and culture.
She's calling.
Libraries, I talked of meta literacy there. Meta literacy is not about just teaching someone about books or information. It's also about, it's a meta literacy encompasses all other literacies. Because what brought about meta literacy was that while information literacy dealt with information, digital literacy dealt with the digital panoply of digital technologies, cultural literacy dealt with culture. Then they thought, no, let's bring a holistic model that incorporates all other literacies. So in meta literacy, you've got technology literacy, information, all other literacies are incorporated there. So it's not just about how to access information, like let's say findability, locatability, retrievability, searchability, discoverability, shareability of information, but it's also about teaching someone to not to be mentally lazy and allow technology to find the answers for you, because that tantamounts to mental ineptitude, because in the end we have people who are not intelligent because they are using technology to find answers for them. You see, because these technologies are products of human beings, but they cannot be smarter than the human being himself. If you have read a book by Percy Shelley known as Frankenstein, there's a man who invents a monster, and the monster becomes so weird when the monster is grown and makes demands to the creator that, okay, you created me alone, I now need a wife or a partner. If you don't do that, I'm going to kill your children. And there is a battle between this created monster and the creator. So the lesson from that book is that human beings should not play God, you see. So while we have these technologies, we should be able to use them in a, what we can call a sagacious or in a wiser way, so that they don't destroy the intellectual, quality of our students in as far as knowledge generation is concerned. Because if they are mentally lazy, who is going to generate more knowledge for the next generation? Thank you.
Can I make some comments?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make 2 comments. My experience is that we are highly undermined and undervalued as librarians. I remember when I completed my degree, at that time it was a 4-year degree, but my salary was equivalent to someone who was just a senior clerk without even matric at that time. Most of the people only had JC or standard 8. So we're undervalued. So I think it's something that LIAS has to look at seriously. And it's also very, very much crucial that we, as the Library and Information Association of South Africa, we should play an important role in making sure that we contribute with regard to curriculum development in ally schools. I think if Brachali was still here, you will remember very well that at least DESA in 1995, that was a burning issue, that we should not be an association that is just a toothless dog. We should actually have value. And there was a question in saying there was so many issues to say, what role is the association going to play? Some were saying that we should have that kind of a mandate to play a role like unions, and says, you know, so there were so many debates. I think this is something that we need to look at as an association, have a special forum to discuss about these things. It's very crucial, so that it cannot be undermined. It's very, very important. The issue of hiring librarians and you know, with low qualifications is there are two reasons. One is actually lack of knowledge. Then it comes down to what Dr. Chisita has indicated, that we as librarians has got a pedagogical role. Lack of knowledge. A very good example was there was a post in one of my libraries at Special Forces School 2 years ago, and it was advertised with standard 10 as a requirement, and I immediately stopped the process. And the post owners who were the Special Forces School indicated to me that they did not even know what a librarian is. But in their structure, there's a post of a librarian in that school, and so they thought maybe something a librarian is, you know, just metric is good enough. So it also indicates that we've got a very, very important role to play, to teach and to educate and to be visible and to be there and to make sure that we contribute significantly in this sphere. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me get the last round. I see two hands there. This will be the last two questions from them. The first one, Your Highness.
Majesty and all the colleagues, thank you, Dr. Chisita, for the well-informing presentation. Happy Librarians Day, colleagues, and a call to us to be proud of who we are, and those that is being librarians is well noted. Mine was just to perhaps give a comment or maybe a recommendation which has been burning my heart since I started as a librarian years ago. That there should be a way that will make sure that practicing librarians and teaching librarians are in sync. And I think Dr. Chisita has mentioned that. That will enable us to ensure that by the time we produce a librarian from the School of Librarianship or Information Science, is a well-rounded librarian. And those will be librarians that will, of course, be able to respond to the generations that would like to produce as librarians. Librarians that have been vested with being lifelong learners, library literate, and also information literate citizens and societies. And I think there is a disjuncture between us that are sitting in offices practicing and those that are in the classes, whether it's virtual classes or face-to-face classes. And in this paradigm, and where we are sitting discussing this core importance of our role as librarians, I think that is one of the things that we need to look into going forward. And I think I'll pause at that. Thank you, Your Majesty, and thank you to all the presenters today.
Thank you, Highness. The last question will be from Agnes. Madia? Yes.
Thank you, sir. Though I am covered, I just wanted to highlight the issue of librarians being undermined. One, I'm working for one of the provincial government wherein libraries, it's run by, you know, the bigger positions are run by teachers. I'm a librarian by profession, but I'm working at records, which is related one thing. So libraries has been created to schools, but no one is running those libraries. That means those libraries are run by the teachers. And when comes the positions, they say SES, Senior Education Specialist in libraries. So to me, I don't see a sense of being a librarian, but the position it's run by teachers. I felt, you know, it's libraries has been undermined in terms of that. So I'm puzzling. Thank you.
Thank you. A response and closing.
Maybe Mr. Mabasa, you can start, then I come after you. Or you're muted.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I was saying I'm so impressed and by the comment by Sis Agnes, and it's very much real. We had an issue when I was still working for the Provincial Library Services in the Pompo, where our director was a social worker. Do you understand? I mean, how do you do that? How do you do such kind of a thing? I mean, as indicated, senior positions are given to people who don't even have the qualifications. That's a very gross negligence of gross undermining of our profession. And I think as the Library Information Association of South Africa, these are some of the burning issues that we need to attend to. In 2001, we even went to an extent of having a serious march in Phalaborwa, you know, trying to make people aware that we are professionals, we've got a role to play, we're critical in the society. So this is something that really is something that we really seriously need to look at. But she's very much right. And this trend of appointing people who are not qualified to lead libraries is continuing, and it needs to stop. And it needs to stop right now. Thank you.
Can I come in there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree there with the speaker as well as Mr. Mabasa, because I also noticed that in certain situations, especially in Anglophone countries, in schools, you find that a librarian gets a job there, and you are asked to report to the head of department for English. So I found that to be a misnomer because, you know, as a librarian, you are a professional who should be independent enough. And also another thing is that the tradition in Africa is that when you go to universities, librarians are regarded as some administrative staff. But when you compare this to other countries now, for example, outside countries, you find that librarians are also academics. You have a professor who is a librarian. You have a dean who is a librarian. So there's need for a fundamental rethink through LIASA on that, so that we begin to discuss issues of even tenureship and how to elevate the status of librarians, so that they are not just taken as some, you know, a peripheral group of people who are just there to do administrative stuff. You see, I have seen also in terms of recruiting students, in certain institutions, you find that at one time I was, you know, a head of department. You find some students are just sent to you. Then you say, why are you coming to the department? Say, you know, they say for the other areas, you know, I might find the challenges, but here maybe LIS it's easy. Then I am surprised is that no, LIS it's not an easy, it's a very difficult subject because it's broad, it's interdisciplinary, it has its core areas, but it's interdisciplinary and it has a lot of, you know, impact in terms of maneuvering once one graduates. You see, so I think there's a lot of need for lot of advocacy in that area to ensure that our profession remains vibrant and to ensure that people know that you cannot substitute a qualified librarian for, you know, for someone who has no qualifications at all, because that undermines the whole essence of training, the whole essence of professionalism, because you cannot take LIS, an internationally, you know, acclaimed profession, and just let anyone have their field day there. There is another issue that is, maybe I'll just highlight this one, where people have always thought that since technology, they thought librarianship is now going to die. And they expected that maybe by 2000, because this is where most digital projects and initiatives started, they thought that with the coming of e-books, this is the end of the library. But surprisingly, the library is still going on, and it will continue on to go on and on and on and on. Now, it is these people without qualifications who, when they are brought into the system, will then discredit the profession. Just like when you look at journalism, nowadays people say, since there is internet, everyone is a journalist, you can write anything. And this has led to fake news. And what we now say is that, has journalism gone to the dogs, or the dogs have gone to journalism? So it's the other way, where the people who are not journalists are masquerading as journalists. Then they write articles which are fake and discredit the journalists who are trained. So it's the same problem that we encounter also in LIS, where those who are brought in without those qualifications end up discrediting those who have got qualifications, because they don't have the knowledge on how things should be done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chisita, Mr. Mabasa. The discussion should continue even beyond here. And I guess our leadership there, Liasa leadership, will take forward the discussions. And of course, there are probably, you know, some things in the pipeline that they are looking at. I think we went beyond time. There are still many questions to be asked, but yeah, because of time, I think I will continue the discussions outside this forum.
Sorry, Chair. Can I have the contacts of Mr. Mabaso and the president-elect, because they are raising issues that are of very, you know, pertinent, that are pertinent to things that I do, and you know, I would like to be in touch with them. Maybe you can send me via email.
Itumeleng Marita will facilitate that.
All right, thank you so much.
Yes, yes.
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 With your permission. With your permission.
In recognition of Popaya.
With your permission, Dr. Lidwaba, we've got. I've initiated what we call the Department of Defense Library Forum. So I've already in my mind, Dr. Chisita, you're going to be our guest speaker in one of the forums.
That is noted.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I look forward to that.
We're going to invite you.
Oh, no. Thank you so much. That will be good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Presenters have spoken. Questions have been raised, of course, and responded to, and attendees have listened. Marita, vote of thanks, please.
Ledwaba, can we have this recording?
This will be facilitated by Marita and Itumele.
All right, sharp.
Yes.
We will arrange for that. Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Marita van der Merwe, and I'm the manager in the department UNISA Library and Information Services. It has been such an honor to be part of this event. It was truly a wonderful event. On behalf of UNISA Library and Information Services, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our great speakers. Thank you, Mr. Charlie Molepu, for the informative presentation on the Librarians Association, creating awareness around the profession and the professional body, but also reminding us about the importance of telling powerful stories of librarians that came before us, remembering the great leaders. Thank you, Morris Mabasa, Mr. Morris Mabasa, for sharing with us your inspirational journey. What I will remember, what you have shared with us, is to be a librarian in all spheres of life, to be visible everywhere. Thank you, Dr. Collins Chitita, for your thought-provoking presentation, sharing the knowledge with us from the ancient library until smart libraries. It was truly a journey with a vast amount of information that I cannot repeat here. You mentioned that we need more spaces to learn, and that libraries provide those spaces, the challenges encountered by African libraries, and also some recommendations. Thank you for your rich presentation. I also want to thank the program director, Dr. Lesiba Letwaba, for professionally directing our program so well today. Ms. Fatima Daris, for opening the event with a warm welcome to the audience. Lastly, thank you to everyone for taking the time to join us today, participating and contributing to make South African Librarians Day celebrations a success. Thank you, one and all. Have a great Librarians Day.
Thank you, Marita, and we've come to the end of our program. Let's continue our good work within the profession. Thank you and goodbye.
Oh, thank you, everyone.
Goodbye, colleagues.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, colleagues. Cheers.
Happy Librarians Day.
Happy Librarians Day. Enjoy.
Happy Librarians Day to everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.